Hello, I'm just connecting to Instagram so I can go live on Instagram as well, but I don't think it's working. After you go live, click go live. Oh, there we go. There we go. Hello, good morning. No, good afternoon. Oh, God knows what day is it. Hello, everyone. Let me know. I'm streaming across Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And the reason I'm doing it on YouTube is because Facebook has started deleting lives after 3 weeks or whatever it is. So and all my content is on live, so a lot of it is historically. Anyways, I hope you're all right. If you're watching live, drop me a hey. I've got some thoughts to share with you today. I'm having a bit of a big aha moments. So yeah, I wanted to share something with you, and I'm going to hopefully share a bit of information and learning and kind of insight as an imperfect neurodivergent adult, but who moves in lots of spaces with lots of other neurodivergent adults and some not neurodivergent adults and some differently divergent adults. Hi, Sandra. And I think this kind of really comes into play for those of us who are parents and carers who are advocating for our children and young people in school. I think there's some stuff I want to share, like some insights that I think might help you when you're thinking about how you interact with professionals, and also for people who are in the business space. So I've got some things I want to share. I'm just putting these in my groups. Give me 1 second. Okay. So here's what's coming up for me, and this is personal experience, but I had a bit of a moment this morning where I had a couple of occasions this week where I won't go into detail of them, but where I found myself in a situation where I was communicating with someone else and I just felt like they just were not understanding me. And I was getting really frustrated and really angry with myself that I wasn't communicating clearly. And the thing that I was trying to communicate, I was very frustrated about. And they were being perfectly reasonable in their responses, but it was really pushing my buttons and I was getting a bit cross. And then I was getting frustrated with myself for getting a bit cross. And I kind of came away from both of those interactions in two very different fields, one in business, one in my personal life. Well, personal life / advocating for my young person, where I just had to I was sitting with myself and thinking, is this me? And then I had to have a bit of a moment and I was like, oh, okay. Hi, Sue on Insta, people on Insta. Hi, Marina. I had this moment where I was like, is this me? And then first of all, I had to be a bit gentle with myself and be like, probably a bit of it is you. Let's not forget you have a social communication disorder. For those who don't know, I am officially neurodivergent. I'm autistic and ADHD. And depending on hormones, regulation levels, how much food I've eaten, whether I'm well rested or not, sometimes my autism is in the driving seat. Sometimes my ADHD is in the driving seat. Sometimes autistic me is in the driving seat and ADHD is locked in the boot. Sometimes ADHD is driving and autism is hiding on the back seat. And sometimes autism is driving and ADHD is in the boot, but with the boot open, throwing shit onto the hard shoulder. So, it's the fun of being ADHD, that beautiful mix of both neurotypes, which basically means that you never really know what you're going to get, but you can be pretty sure it'll be a hot mess. Emphasis on the mess. And I have to find it amusing because historically, I would have been in a spiral of, it's me, I'm a terrible human, no one understands me, there's obviously something wrong with me. And that's what a lot of us as neurodivergent people tell ourselves and are often told by other people when we don't know that we're neurodivergent and we're masking like mad. And that's one of the things that, as a neurodivergent adult advocating for better understanding of neurodivergence, I want people to feel empowered to not do that to themselves, because that is absolutely crippling and soul destroying for you when you gaslight yourself in that way. But I did have this moment this morning when I think this morning, when I was thinking about this, my autism was locked in the boot and my ADHD was in the car on the drive with the radio up loud, not really wanting to think about it. And my RSD, my rejection sensitivity disorder, was stood in front of the car with a baseball bat ready to smash my headlights in. And I felt pretty dysregulated when I was thinking about it. Can you tell I like an analogy? And I like a bit of personification. And I had this moment this morning when I realised I've done a lot of reading about the double empathy problem. So the double empathy problem, the double empathy theory, the double empathy paradigm basically works on this level. Neurodivergent people and non-neurodivergent people, specifically autistic and allistic. So allistic are non-autistic people, but specifically autistic and not autistic people, we are very different from one another. And like, I don't want to apply like blanket scenarios and blanket assumptions on behalf of the whole autistic community. I'm just sharing this as one autistic person. But for me, that has been forever my situation. As an autistic person, I have always felt like I was in a room of people not speaking the same language as me until I met and was befriended by other autistic people. And that's what the double empathy problem says. The double empathy problem says that in essence, our levels of empathy are not the same. Our ways of communicating are not the same. Our ways of social interaction are not the same. Our understandings of social situations and interactions are not the same. One is not good, one is not bad. They are just different. We are differently wired. The way autistic people experience the world, in terms of how our nervous systems are wired, our spiky profiles mean that we feel some things a lot, we feel other things not at all. And very often I find myself in a situation where I feel like I'm having all the feelings all the time about all the things. And if you've heard my podcast with Neuroshambles, you'll know that we talked a lot about empathy and how I actually think that when people say that autistic people don't have empathy, it's absolute bullshit. We have a different kind of empathy. Different, not less, right? But it made me think, when I was pondering it this morning, I was thinking about all those situations I've been in where there've been quite high conflict conversations, usually with professionals, where I have been like trying really hard to stay calm, trying really hard to be rational, but I have had this overflowing emotion and I've been dysregulated and my nervous system has been like activated and my brain is on fire and I've just like ended up bursting into tears in meetings and then being cross with myself for that and then feeling like I've discredited myself because I'm being over emotional. I think that's something particularly that we see in people who are assigned female at birth. We're accused of being over emotional. It's quite rare to see a man being accused of over emotional, if I'm honest. A cis man, at least. A cis straight white man, especially. And when I was thinking about it this morning, I was thinking those moments of conflict, for me personally, the reason they're so triggering is because they are a reminder for me on a very, real, guttural, almost physical level, because the way my nervous system is wired and the way I experience things, they are a reminder for me of every occasion where I felt that I'm not understood, that I'm other, that I'm different, that I'm wrong, that I'm in danger. You know, because we're social beings, right? So when you grew up as a unidentified, I always think that that's funny, unidentified flying autistic, that's my phrase. But as an unidentified neurodivergent child, and you did not fit the mold, and it took me until I was past 45 to get diagnosed. So for 45 years, I lived thinking I was wrong. Everything about my experience, my life, my being, my communication, my morals, I was wrong. And someone said to me this morning, how do you think it feels when you feel like other people are like misunderstanding you and saying you've done things that you haven't done? And I was like, I know exactly how that feels, because that's what being autistic and not knowing that you're autistic feels like every single day for your whole life, until someone goes, hey, I think you might be one of ours. And so when I have those moments where I feel like I'm not being understood and I'm not communicating clearly, and that like sense of justice, this is another thing that a lot of autistic people have. We have that strong sense of justice and fairness, that very black and white thinking. And that makes us like really good at pattern recognition, and we're excellent advocates, and we're brilliant activists, and we're the people in the room that will say the things that everyone's thinking that no one else wants to say. And we're also people in the room that will say and think things that no one else is thinking, and will say it, and everyone in the room will be like, whoa, particularly in a room where there aren't other neurodivergent people. But for me, like in those moments of conflict, and I use conflict with a lowercase c, like just like not having the same point of view as someone, I am back in those moments when I'm a 7-year-old girl and my heart is breaking because I've got no friends and no one understands me. And then my nervous system kicks into overdrive and my defenses are up and my heckles are up and my rejection sensitivity. And the reason for all of this is to say that because we are social creatures, this is the reason we mask as autistic people, because we are social creatures, we do all we can to fit in, we assimilate. And that is not good for us because we're behind this mask of this is who I am pretending to be or who I am playing out to be. Even we do that subconsciously, but behind that, we're doubting ourselves and we have no real connection with other people in our lives. And only, I believe, by learning to be honest about ourselves, our intentions, our drive, our own imperfections, being able to own those moments when you're like, I don't care if no one else in the room is thinking or going to say this. I have to say it. Otherwise, I'm gaslighting myself into not speaking my truth. And when we've done that for decades, and then we unmask and we decide to be more unmasked more frequently, we're in a real position of vulnerability because we could at any moment be ostracized, accused of any number of things, told we're words that I have had said to me because I was showing up in my autistic authenticity include loud, obnoxious, headstrong, boisterous, domineering, bossy, overbearing, a pariah, a bully, unnecessary, undignified, impolite, rude, loud, obscene, disgusting. Did I say unnecessary? I've had that a few times. Unladylike, unlikable, nasty. And I don't know if you've read How to Win Friends and Influence People, but that book says there aren't any people in the world that are not doing the best with what they've got. And I want to extend that compassion to other people as well. I know other people are doing the best with what they've got, right? We're all doing the best with what we've got. But when what you've got is hindered by the fact that you're in a minority neurotype, you're already not on a level playing field. And I think it's so important that as neurodivergent adults, we have these conversations, and I'm aware this is more of a lecture or a monologue than a conversation, but we have these conversations with particularly our autistic and neurodivergent children and young people, because they have to know that when they find their people, I'm not a big fan of the word tribe, but when they find their people and they find people who share their sense of injustice, their love of directness, their incapacity to keep their mouth shut when really they should, their, almost disabling levels of rejection sensitivity, their need to stand up for the underdog. When you meet other people and you bring other people into your world who share those, in essence, core values, not even values, just ways of being. Like, this isn't necessarily things that we choose for ourselves. This just goes with the territory of being neurodivergent. Sue's that's a lot to deal with. Yeah, it is. And I'm an out loud processor, so that's why I'm sharing this here. But this isn't also to say, this is something I've been thinking about for about a year. All of this stuff around, shit, why do people misunderstand me so terribly? I have been in therapy about for a year since my relationship ended last year, and some of the things that were said to me by my ex-partner during the conversation when he ended our relationship are some of the things that just are so raw. So this is something that has been on my mind all that time. And like historically, I might have been like, I'll take it to therapy. I will take it to therapy, don't worry. And I'm fine. And I am also conscious that there'll be people going, oh, look at her crying on the internet. Do you know what? It's okay to cry on the internet sometimes. People's way of processing is completely valid. And I don't want to be in a place where I feel like, which is where I felt for a long time. I'm right, you're wrong. You don't understand me, so I'm just going to cut all ties. I have burned so many bridges with people because I have felt misunderstood in times of conflict. And I haven't had the social skills and the emotional maturity, and let's be honest, the support and the bravery to be able to unpick some of those conflict situations with people who I really cared about. And I lost people because of it. And it's one of the greatest regrets of my life that I didn't know how to mend conflict. And so part of this is me processing out loud that I know I've got some work to do around this. And whereas historically, my way of managing conflict would have been head down, mask on, don't make a fuss, get on through, this is too dangerous. Now, because I've found people that I feel safe with, I feel fortunate that I can go, do you know what? This is going to be tricky and this is going to be messy. And I'm going to hear things I don't want to hear. And I'm probably going to say things that other people don't want to hear. And that's how we get through conflict. That's how we resolve conflict. And in and amongst that, we give ourselves the compassion to understand that because of the double empathy paradigm, when you are in the marginalized minority, and autistic people are marginalized, and we are a minority, you do not have the same level of freedom, autonomy, and privilege as people who are not autistic. Because it is dangerous to show up as your authentic autistic self. And I've only been able to do it for the past 4 years because I'm approaching 50 and I'm in that stage of fuck it, I don't give a shit what people think of me, which also is dangerous and not always healthy. But I wanted to share because I know I have a lot of neurodivergent people in my community, particularly neurodivergent parents and carers, particularly late discovered neurodivergent parents and carers who are advocating powerfully for themselves, for their young people, in the workplace, in education settings, in their personal lives. And this stuff is messy and uncomfortable and icky and difficult and feels unsafe. And it's okay if you don't have the tools, the energy, the capacity to do this. It's okay. It's okay if masked you is the safest version of you. There's no shame in that. And it's okay if unmasked you puts you in places and times and situations where you feel really vulnerable. The way to be kind and compassionate to yourself is to be like, no wonder I feel so fucking vulnerable right now. This is big existential stuff. And it is still preferable to gaslighting yourself and silencing yourself and telling yourself that your opinion does not matter, that you are wrong, that your black and white thinking is a crime, that your bluntness is rudeness, that your need for detail is unnecessary, that your sense of justice is misplaced, that your not being able to let things go is a sign of neuroticism or neurotic. I've been called that before as well. You're doing your best with what you've got. Give yourself that grace. Other people are doing the best with what they've got too. And if it's hurting you, you're allowed to tell people. And people who don't want to hurt you will take ownership of that. And the conflict resolution might be tricky and messy and muddy and icky. And you might decide to check out, and that's okay if that's what's safest for you. But don't gaslight yourself and go back to thinking that you have to assimilate, because those of us who have lived in a masked life know how much that hammers your mental health. And I find myself in situations where I am experiencing the double empathy problem. My survival tactic, my instinct is to go back to being masked, to apologize, to people please, to make it okay, just to stop the tension. But that way, mental health disaster lies. And so I won't do that to myself anymore. If this has resonated with you, let me know. If you're like, what the fuck is she talking about? That's fine. That's fine. This isn't necessarily for everybody. And either it will make sense or it won't. And if you are someone who I have been in conflict with previously, I'm kind of in a place where I'm open to conversations about that. I think becoming sober was a big part of that for me. Like a big part of my mask was my alcoholism. And now that I'm no longer drinking and I'm more than 12 months sober, I see things in much clearer ways. And I do feel things in a much bigger way. My God, the feeling the big things about all the things all the time, it's very much the life of sobriety for me. But it's still preferable. But if you're someone who wants to reach out to me because we've had stuff before, we can have that conversation. And I will endeavour to give you the same level of grace and compassion that I'm trying to give myself. And I'll ask that you do the same, and we'll see where that puts us. But more than anything else, if you're watching this and you're like, yeah, just know that it's never, never wrong to be honest and to speak your truth and to be authentic. And then if you're wrong, anyway, here endeth the lesson. I'm going to go and get a cup of tea. I might have a cry. Thanks for holding space for me to share this. And I hope you all have a marvellous day. Or just a day. Marvellous is quite a tall order, right? Just go and have a day. See you all later.